Good afternoon. We're gonna read about 1 or 2 more minutes. Let's see. The student is online. Yeah, and we have a student in class, so we read at least 2 more minutes before we start.
Good day.
Good evening. We'll start in a minute.
No problem. This is Adderley, Vanique Adderley.
Yes, I used to see the Kingdom. Yes. Good afternoon. Okay, good evening, everyone. Trust everyone had a restful weekend. No homework, at least not from this class, except some reading to do. So we're going to do just do a quick review of chapter 4. The last time we met, so we talked about the types of credit products. And we said those for personal as well as an individual, as well as for the business. And for business, we mean sole trader, the partnership, and the corporation or company limited. So we said there were overdrafts, for both corporate credit cards, for both, will credit cards for both, term loans for both, mortgages for both, and they were similar. And we added a fourth point when you go back up to overdrafts or revolving credit lines. We said revolving access to funds for both of those products. Okay. So this is, the next slide just shows the summary of it. And of course, businesses also have other products that not used by individuals. And we said those are the customs bond, the customs check writing facility, the bid bond, and the performance bond. Okay. And then we also talked about a fifth one, which is also covered in module 2, international business, the letter of credit or documentary credit. And we said of these last 5, these that is going back to customs bond, the check, customs check writing, the bid bond, the performance bond, and the documentary credit or letter of credit. We said that all of those are written agreements, usually with in a standard format or a form document, and usually supported by cash. Okay. Now, one of them we said may be supported by real estate, and that was the performance bond. Okay. So that was the performance bond, and we said normally that would be done in the cases where there are like subdivision developments, and so the government would hold a few of the properties equivalent to the cost of putting in the infrastructure. So, and the infrastructure is your roads, your utilities such as electricity, water. Okay, that's the performance bond. Okay, and once the utilities are put in properly, satisfactorily, the government then will release those lots, or allow those lots to be released back to the developer, so that they can then sell them. But those lots cannot be sold because they are bonded. Okay. Then we borrowed the diagram from module 2 to look at the letter of credit, the documentary credit, how it works. And we said that there was the importer and the exporter wanted to do trade with each other. But there's that the exporter wants to know that they will be paid. So there has to be something put in place. And so the importer would go to their bank and set up a payment mechanism, the letter of credit, documentary credit, in order for the funds to go to the exporter's bank. So the exporter is paid. The exporter will release the funds because they know that if they do not get the payment directly from the importer, that they can then call on the bank, financial institution, and they will get paid their money. And again, normally, you know, some businesses will allow you 30 days, 60 days, up to 90 days to pay a debt. Okay. So let's do a little review. I'll do a little game, matching game. Those of you online, follow along with us. Okay. So let's look at those of you online, you'll see it on your screen. Okay. So we need to match the items on the left-hand side with those on the right-hand side. So number 1 is matched with what? The third one, which is convenience, flexibility, interest. Everyone agree with that? No, no one, okay, all right, yes, so the third one on the, to the right. What is the next one? Corporate credit card, personal or corporate credit card. Number one. Everyone agrees with that? Yes, okay, okay. The third one, consumer or business loan. Number four, installment payments, clear payment terms, fixed interest rates, correct? And then, of course, I guess by default, sorry? Okay, so it's the last man standing, so. So long repayment terms, low interest rate, accumulates equity over time. Okay, so so that's the end of chapter 4. Any questions on that? No questions? Okay. So what I want to do is homework. I want to go to homework and the class assignment. I want to sign it. Yes. Anybody else have that happen? No, one ever. Happy with that, we didn't already do that, but we go. No, they didn't. That's good. That's what they did back. In 1492. I think we use water right side, but compared to our elements. Okay, so. Let's see. Pasha, that's. Vendette. Field is online. Say yes. Sorry, is it on? Sorry. Sorry. No. The nose is not here. The body is on. Mr. Markey is not here. Jessica is online. Everyone who's in other business. Okay. Those who are not here or online, we get this on the next class when they come back. So let's okay, so I look at the homework first. What I will do is I will go through the answers. I won't go through I won't read the questions. I'll just read the answers. And if you have any questions, I'll entertain questions, okay? So this is the homework. So the first answer, true and false, it's A, B, A. Today. Okay, hold on. Another student just entered. He was low as well. Homework. There's the answers. Okay. So let me start it from the beginning. Section 1 of the homework. True, false. 1 is A. 2 is B. 3 is A. 4 is A. 5 is B. 6 is B. 7 is A. 8 is A. Any questions on that section? No? Okay. One word, because the final exam may be done online and you may have a similar paper to fill in. So don't put in the words true, false. Okay, because it actually to put in the correct letter. Okay, so put A or B in the true or false. Okay. So section 2, multiple choice. 1 is A. 2 is E. 3 is E. 4 is C. 5 is F. And 6 is D. Yep. Had a question? Anyone? No? Okay. Section 3, fill in the blank. The words to fill in there is from loans represents the primary source of revenue for the bank. 2, you could either put corporation or limited company. 3, it's borrowing power. 4, the options were to purchase highly priced items, to fund a project or for business expansion, or unable to obtain credit from suppliers. Those are the 3 options. To purchase highly priced items, to fund a project or for business expansion, and the third one, unable to obtain credit from suppliers. Any questions on that? All right, so let's look at the class assignment. Section 1, true, false. Now I subsequently sent a corrected a corrected assignment, which excluded question 4 in section 1. So I will only go through questions 1 to 3 in section 1, true or false. So number 1 is A. Number 2 is A. Number 3 is B. Section 2, 1 is D. 2 is A. 3 is E. 4 is B. 5 is C. And 6 is also C. Okay, let me go. 4 is B. Okay, so. Okay, so you said you had a question for 4? Yeah. Yeah. Remember you said you have importers, you have exporters. And it guarantees the payment for the exporters. Okay, number 3. Three should be E. Yeah, it's
that's why I will take and B because I know the correct answer. But I wasn't too certain about.
yeah issued to the government because the government is the only one who could receive customs duties. Right? So issued to the government by a bank or financial institution on behalf of one of its clients. Okay. Now, I must say that both the homework assignment and the class assignment were done very well by all persons. And there were some full marks in both exercises. And everyone was in the 90s and above. So they wonder if I'm giving you all the answers. They'll say maybe I'm making it too easy. Okay, so it was very well done overall. Okay, so we're off to a good start. Okay. So let's talk a little bit tonight. Because while you did questions on chapter 5, we didn't get to talk about it. So let's talk through it a little bit. Okay. See what we could learn from each other. So the interview.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, go ahead.
The section 3, the fill in the blanks of the homework.
Oh, I didn't go through that. No?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I'm so excited y'all did well. Okay, so fill in the blank for homeworks. The assignment. Okay. All right, so here they are. Section 3, fill in the blank. 1, sole proprietor or sole trader. 2, borrowing resolution. 3, the options were longer repayment terms, lower interest rate, accumulate equity over time, before, the options were convenience and interest charged based on usage. Okay, so make sure, I think one person may have left out the word charged, but it's interest charged based on usage. Okay, because the bank also pays interest. So the bank will pay interest on deposits, but it will charge interest on credit facilities. Okay, so that's a very key word. Usage. Okay, so interest charged. If that's one of the most people try to remember the shorter ones. So convenience, flexibility, whatever it is. Okay. Right. Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I said, Miss Sunday. Oi. Oi, some must be in the water. My water. Okay. 5 is mortgage, sorry. 5 is mortgage. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the interview. All right, so there's some things about the interview. And there are 3 parts to the interview, believe it or not. And there are things that we do before, during, and after. Okay. So for those of you who thought just the interview was just what actually happens, at the actual interview, you have 3 parts. So it's what happens before. You see the client, what happens while you're seeing the client, and what happens when the client leaves. Okay. There's something I refer to the interview as the interview sandwich to help you to think of it more vividly. So if we look at a hamburger sandwich, the bottom of the bread is your before, that's your base. Okay. So there's some things that you do with that, whether you toast it lightly or you spread your mayonnaise or mustard or butter or whatever, however you do it, or maybe it's not toasted or lightly toasted. So there's some things you do before, there's some things you do during, and this is the more involved portion. So there's more things. That's the middle of your sandwich. That's your hamburger, your onions, your lettuce, tomatoes, and any other condiments. And then after, you put on the top of the bun to get you your complete sandwich, your interview. Okay. So there's things you do before, during, and after. So let's look at for the interview. What are some of the things we do before the interview? So what you want to do is you set and reconfirm the appointment date and time. Okay, so if this is one that you're initiating, you call the client and you set the date and time with them. If it's a client calling in, then again you also set the date and time. Okay, and during that telephone call, when you set the time, when you end in the telephone call, you want to also remind them of the date and the time. Okay, and if necessary, they may want to know exactly where you're located, particularly if you're in, you have multiple floors and you occupy multiple floors. Okay, so I'm on the 2nd floor. Come to receptionist. They'll direct you. Blah blah blah. Okay. Ensure that you have an understanding of the customer's requirements or needs. So this is the kind of determining the purpose of the call. So if you are initiating this, it might be that this may be a one of those cold calls that you are soliciting business from the client. Okay, so if you are calling the client, you see where their loans come down to a certain level, and you figure, oh, this is a good time to market them to see if you can get them to come in. Then there's some things that you will do and set in motion for that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, or it may be you may have to call the client for a payment, right? For a payment. Okay. In the case of the client calling you, okay, it is important that you understand what they're asking. So if they're calling for a loan and they say they want school fees, right? You have to make sure that it is this high school fees, or just a high school child, or anyway, a child anywhere from primary school to high school, where this is fees for COB, whether it's for college abroad, because you want to understand the scope. Okay, so if it's for like high school, junior high school, primary school, chances are you're going to put that over a maximum term of 12 months, possibly 10, 11 months, right? Because chances are they'll be back to you the following year. Okay. If it's for college, then that's a different conversation. Okay, because you're looking at long term, so there's certain questions that you would put to them, because one of the things is how, if they're coming to you for the first year's tuition, how are the subsequent year tuition, assuming a 3 to 4 year college, how is that going to be covered? Okay, because that tends to be more expensive. So whereas school fees for child, the non-college student, let me put it that way, probably 1,500, 1,200, whatever it is, 2,000, 2,500, could possibly be paid within 12 months. But when you're talking about college fees, you're looking at your 25,000 and higher. Okay, and so that tends not to be, the average person may not have the wherewithal to pay that in 12 months. So you have to look at something longer. So one of the things you want to find out from them is, how is it going to, okay, you want to get them there, yes, but what is the plan going forward? Okay, and some financial institutions in their training will actually, in their in-house credit training, will formulate the way you deal with that, right? So there's some questions. So someone may come, they may just need the first year because they're waiting for a scholarship. But one of the requirements of the scholarship is that you pay your first semester or your first year, and then the scholarship clicks in. So, or it could be, you're waiting some other monies to come in from some other source, the client that is, and so they will reveal that source. Okay. If this is well, we're talking about existing clients, so you want to pull the customer's relevant file. If it's a loan application, either you are marketing them or they're calling you, you want to pull the customer's current credit file, and if you're allowed to see the collateral security file, okay, and also look at any account mandates to make sure that the individual or individuals are the persons who will be signing on those accounts. So you want to see what the existing application was that they completed for the existing loan, and any correspondence that may have transpired. So that'll be in the credit file. So there were some difficulties with this customer. You'll be able to see that information in the exchange. So if the customer was late, you may see some late notices or copies of emails or even letters going out to the customer. Okay. You'd also look at the go to your system, your IT system, and you look at it to see how the account operated. Okay. And there are certain fields that will tell you how many times the customer's been late or how many times they've been overdrawn. And also from some of the statements, it'll also show you, like in the case of current accounts or checking accounts, it'll tell you how many times they have had checks returned for NSFs, not sufficient funds. They'll have all those indicators on a certain screen. Okay, so those are some of the things you want to look at, depending on what the customer is coming to you for, or you are approaching that client about. Okay, you want to get all of your relevant forms together, whether those are application forms or some other form that the client needs to execute. Have them handy, because one of the last things you want to do is for the customer come in and then you got to be calling this one. Oh, you have this form, you have that form, right? So have your own supply of the various forms that you may need, and keep that supply sufficiently stocked, right? Now there's going to come a time when you something may come up and you just don't have that in a particular form. Okay, so a curveball may be thrown there. Okay, so for example, you expected one person to come in, and they say, oh, this is going to be a joint application, so they throw a curveball to you. Okay, so possibly on your way to escorting them to a cubicle or the office, whatever it is, you may want to say to your administrative assistant or someone, could you get me, I need a joint form or something like that, or I need another form that may need more than one signature, because you have it for the single person, or you may have it for the company, right? Or they may tell you, we come in for a company, there's 3 of us, but 4 or 5 people come up, so they may need additional signature cards for the additional people. Okay, so sometimes you're thrown curveballs. Also have pen and paper available. Nowadays, we kind of key in information electronically, take notes electronically. But for those establishments that don't have that technology, they're still, jot down some handwritten notes. So you want to have working pen and paper available. Okay. Any questions or input from anyone on before the interview? No? Okay, so let's look at the last 4 before the interview. The next screen, identify the area, location, or office to be used. Most banks or financial institutions now have done away with offices for individuals, and so there are a lot of open cubicles, and they'll have separate little smaller offices, interview rooms, whatever it is. So you would want to book if the front office person is responsible, or whoever's responsible for booking the office, you want to make sure that you book that office or one of the offices, so it's available when your client comes in. Okay. You want to remove distractions. So again, a lot of our offices, they're open, and so sometimes music or the news is piped in, or the TV on, and there's there's some news station or whatever it is, that could be a distraction. If you have an interview room or a little office, we want to go use that as much as possible. Okay. You want to. This is exceptionally important because of bank secrecy. Clear the desk area of any confidential material relating to another client. Okay. In fact, you would want to keep your desk clear. Period. Okay. So you only have on your desk what you need for that particular interview. Okay. So like in my I remember in my instance, you'll recall one of the previous classes I said that we did in the early days when I was at FinCo, we did lending and we did collection. So we were dealing with customers on both sides of the fence. Okay. And some of the customers could get, rowdy and aggressive. So anything that could hurt you, staple on the desk, whatever it is, please remove it. But keep it nearby in case you got to use it. In case you have to defend yourself. Okay. Some of the other things you may want to do is wherever possible, if you are interviewing someone of the opposite sex, right? You would probably want say a male interviewing a female. You may want to call in an administrative assistant and explain to them, you may not want to say to them, especially specifically why they're there. You may want to say, she's here for knowledge enhancement and understanding our process, whatever it is. And that's what I did with my administrative assistants. They knew my loan applications in and out. Okay. So if I happened to be in a meeting or I was on vacation or I was out of office for any other reason, vacation or whatever it is, and customer came in, they knew exactly what that customer needed to bring in to complete that application, right? And so they knew where it stood, and they also understood the lending process. I had one ask me, why are you giving me all this knowledge, whatever it is? It's because I see you more than an administrative assistant, right? I want you to understand at that time at FinCo, this is happening at FinCo, we had our administrative assistants and we had several in our department. So some loan officers shared. As the assistant manager, I had my own, right? Because in that department we had 2 assistant managers and they had their teams. And then there was the manager, the mortgage manager, right, who was overall for the mortgage department. And so I had my own admin assistant, and the other loan officers shared 1 or 2. So we had I think it was like there was a loan office, I can't remember what the name was, but it was but that's it was like a junior loan officer, then there's a loan officer, then a senior loan officer, then there's assistant manager, then there's the manager for the unit, right, the mortgage unit. So I told each one of them, you need to understudy. Right. So the men, you look at the junior loan officer, non-junior officer, the loan officer, all the way up, right? My senior loan officer, you understudy me, right? Because I understudy my boss. So when he or she, if that vacancy come available, I ready for that. Okay. So and when they say, well, if you take that, who will take your place? I want to be able to say, this one here, ready to take it. Okay. So don't be afraid to prepare other people for your job, because you should be preparing for your boss job or higher. Okay. So so you want to bring in someone, or if you're a female interviewing a male, you probably want to bring in a male loan officer. And again, you may want to coach it by saying, he's there for enhancement, or I'm new and he's assisting me, whatever it is. Or in case something happened to me, he'll be the one you rely on. Okay, so I don't want you to lie. Okay, but be as realistic as possible with the explanation. Okay, so in the instance where you and that person may be on the same level, right? You may want to say, well, if I'm not here, this person will. Okay, so maybe kind of like a little white lie, but if you're on there, you know, make sure that is the person who they will speak to. Okay. Also, if that's not possible, then you may want to keep the door ajar. Okay, I was fortunate that my administrative assistant and I had eye contact. Right, so her desk was just outside my office, and so I keep my door ajar. So so we had a key, we had a code. So if I needed to be interrupted, right, call comes through. Oh, Mr. Norton, so and so. I said, okay, I'll be out there in a moment. Okay, and then that's my way to escape. Okay, and I also rearranged my desk so that the door is closer to me than the client. Okay, because I got to be able to escape. Okay, and then we had this great big window, and I had a nice heavy chair. So I said, I asked him, I said, how easy is that window to break? Okay, so if I need to go that way, right, like in case of a fire or something, right? Because I mean, they tell you what to do, right? They tell you what to do, you know, because I had a client who threatened that if I come to her house to collect, she could burn me up. Okay, and she could burn me and the house up. Right. So you don't know what, and everyone is afraid of this woman. Right. I mean, she just was. We didn't have the word Karen back there. Okay, but she was a Karen of Karens. Okay. No one wanted to deal with her. And they was glad that I had taken over that portfolio that included her and some of the others. Right. And it was kind of awkward because she said some things, you know, see, they bring this white man, and white man can take my property. And then I said, I know, but that's a story for a different day, right? But when people get angry, they say certain things, right? And so I said, please come in, sit down, let's talk, whatever it is. And so we began the process where she came in and I explained to her what was happening, and she missed payments, how the money that should have gone to the principal was going to pay the interest, because the interest gets paid first, and as a result, her principal was going down. And so when the account recalculated itself, it showed that the payment was going to be enough, and so that is why her payment started getting higher and higher and higher. And she said, "Why nobody sat down with me and explained that to me before?" Right? But she frightened everybody. Nobody wanted to sit down with her, right? And then I got a call from her one day that the house, she didn't have a fire. And the house. apparently she was a smoker, and apparently she fell asleep. And the cigarette lit the bed, right? So it was limited to, I think, her bedroom, a portion of the adjoining bathroom, and I think a portion of the kitchen, right? Now, I had told management about the threat, right? I didn't take the step of reporting it to the police, but management was aware of the threat when she threatened me on the phone to burn me and the house up. Okay, and I also was documented in the file. Okay, so she's like, well, it's not, it's go against me, whatever. I said, well, tell me what happened. She said she can't sleep, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, you explain that to me. I said, the insurance company don't need to know it in our file. Okay. And I said, if I believe that you intentionally did it, I say, now I will turn that information over to the insurance company and it'll take its course. I said, but that's between me and you and the file. Okay. So, but she had a daughter. I think the daughter came home, and the daughter came home with me, and it was the daughter who caught her. If not, she might have perished in the fire, and after that, she came in one time and she tried to give me $20. right? This is not, I appreciate this, blah, blah, go buy lunch. So what I did was, I didn't accept it. I had to accept it because she refused to take it back. So what I did was I pulled out the credit form, write it up, deposit it to her account, right? And I put it in the file, and I had a note to the file to say why that credit was there. Okay. And again, I called it the general manager, because the general manager was the general manager of lending. So I called the general manager. Well, the manager, I made him aware, and I also called the general manager, and explained what happened. So, because I know at some point in time, this woman will fall short, and we can eat this $20. Okay, so that money went back on our account, and then it was a two-part, because one that was processed, and there was a copy that we mailed to the client. So I actually mailed it, because I knew if I tried to give that to her in an envelope, that would have been another scene. Okay, so I just had it mailed to her, but she and I got along well after that. I mean, she was still a rowdy woman. Okay, but she changed because I dealt with her differently, right? I took a risk. Okay, I took a risk, but I knew that I had my protective mechanisms in place, and so you need to protect yourself. Okay, so clear your desk, have a clean desk policy, because especially you're taking a lot of applications. If you can't help yourself, at least put a clear blank piece of paper on top of the information. So the possibility of bank information or client information, other client information being revealed is brought to nil. Okay, and make sure if you have a laptop or a desktop, actually, you have a desktop or laptop, make sure it's facing yourself. And only if you need to show that client a particular screen, you show the client that particular screen. Okay. And number 9 was have access to computer custom information. Any questions on that? I kind of dove a little bit into the during, but I had to explain why you want to keep your desk clear and do certain things. Okay. Okay. So during the interview, this is the part of that interview sandwich that has the most meat, so to speak, plus your condiments and stuff. So you want to listen intently and pay attention to what the client is saying, because you may also be able to take notes, or you may want to just hear what they say, so give me a second while I take notes, or you may be that gifted to the keyboard that you could, do and explain to the client, that, excuse me, I'm not being rude, but I'm taking notes as you speak. Okay. You want to outline or reconfirm the purpose of the meeting, of the interview, right? What is the objective? So if it's a problem-solving one, you will outline that. If it's a marketing one, when the customer's coming for, where you are marketing them, or they're coming for a loan product or credit product, you outline that. Okay, because you want to make sure that you give the client the right product for their need. So you must make it clear what their need is. So you want to give them an overdraft and they actually need a term loan, and vice versa. You want to give them a term loan when they need a overdraft, or start doing a term loan when they actually really need probably a mortgage, okay, or some type of long-term credit. Okay. Make sure ask open-ended questions. Don't let the questions all be yes or no. Invite feedback. Repeat questions and answers for clarification. So let's go back to 3, ask open-ended questions. So there's a danger with open-ended questions because the risk is that you'll have the client may ramble on, but you have to control the conversation with the client. But open-ended questions can also reveal some stuff that the client may not necessarily reveal to you normally. And if we go back, see the picture with the woman shaking, right? The woman shaking. A lot of clients, if they're coming to you, particularly some of them are bold, okay? Some of them seasoned. They ain't got no problem. They settle down, they know what they want. Okay. But there's some people who are intimidated. Clients who have been behind in payments may be intimidated. The person for first time coming for a loan or credit product, they may be a little bit intimidated. So one of the things you want to do is you want to be able to calm their nerves. Okay. So so you see in this one here, you see that in the picture here that's portrayed, you see it's more conversation. Okay. Both parties are relaxed. The interviewer and the interviewee are relaxed. Okay. So asking open-ended questions tend to bring more results. So for example, when you're doing the statement of affairs portion of the loan application, right? And you get to the liability side, you don't want to say, how many credit cards do you have? No, you don't, sorry. You don't want to say, do you have any credit cards? Okay, that's a yes or no answer. That's a close, close kind of question. Do you have any credit cards, right? What you want to ask is what I said first is, how many credit cards do you have? Okay, or you may want to say, okay, let's start with your first credit card, because that's one of the major things that clients will lie to you about on a loan application. Okay, whether they have a credit card or the number of credit cards that he or she has. Fortunately, the credit bureau is on screen, and so a lot of the information is captured. But like I said, it's going to take a while before the information on that is pure, because not all financial institutions are providing information currently to the credit bureau. And of course, with all things new, there are going to be some errors. So there's likely to be some errors. So a customer will find probably more challenges in the initial stages with the credit bureau. No, I ain't had that loan paid off. I shouldn't be showing current, shouldn't be showing outstanding, blah, 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 blah. No, that was not a bad paid loan, that's a good paid loan. So there may be some challenges by the clients. Okay. But once the credit bureau really becomes quote unquote pure in its information, right? It'll be an excellent source. Clients won't be able to lie to you anymore. Okay. But until that happens, these are some of the things we have to do. Okay. So you say, let's start with your first credit card. I ain't got no credit card. You sure you ain't got no credit card? So how do you do? How you pay for this? Whatever. So you want to nudge them in a conversational way, right? But you want to nudge them and shake them up a little bit, but not rattle them and they fall apart. But you just want to nudge them, because there's some people who can look you straight in the eye, right? And they'll tell you, this blouse or shirt that I'm wearing is yellow. Okay. And they cold, yes, cold, right? And you know it ain't yellow. Okay. And they don't blink because they're just not good. Okay. Okay. So during the interview, do an interview, particularly where there's a credit application, right? There's several parts of the loan application. Most of the information in the first section of the application is just informational or demographic information. So you get the name, the age, you know, where they work, where they live, number of dependents, that sort of thing. And so you want to observe their mannerism and they give you those answers, right? So, you know, how many dependents do you have? I remember one where there's an application, and when I came back from vacation, because one of my nephews had applied for a loan, right? And when I look at the application, dependents one, and I know that the nephew had 2 children, right? A set of twins, boy and girl, right? So I was a credit risk manager, so I was reviewing the applications, you know, approved during my absence. And so I called him the loan officer, hey, what's going on here, right? I said, I know this particular person. So they said, yeah, when I asked him, he said he has 1 child with his wife. So I said, okay. I said, 2 things should have come to your mind. Well, 2 things come into play. One of them should have come in your mind. If he told you, I have 1 with my wife, the implication is you may have others out there. Now, I'm not aware of him having any children out there, right? But when people use certain terminology, right, that should send a red flag. Okay, so I said he actually has 2 children that I'm aware of. Okay, he might, like I said, at that time I wasn't aware of him already children outside of his marriage. Okay, but I knew he had 2 children. So she said, oh, so you tell me he have 1 outside? I said, no. I said, now I wonder which one of the twins he's not claiming. I said, because one is a boy, one is a girl. Okay, I say, that's my nephew. So she said, oh, okay. See, it didn't click because, you know, he had a different last name, right? So, so it was kind of hilarious. Okay, so, but she should have, and this was the manager of this branch who took the application, right? So she should have picked up on that. I have 1 with my, and I still that's, and I wanted to ask my sibling so bad, right? You have any more other grandchildren other than so, right? I wanted to ask the sibling so bad, right? But you know, because of buying secrecy and whatnot, you know, it may have led to asking some other questions, you know, because I know that they would have gone to the son and say, your Uncle Glenn asked me, why he asked me this question, right? And then he get vexed, right? And say, I've been to his bank and applied for a loan. Then he called the bank CEO and Mr. Nordish lent my business out to my mother, you see? So I say, because see, when family, one thing with family, if they, I mean, you all may go to grandma's house every Sunday and whatnot, but you mess with them getting a loan or mess with the money or whatever it is, or get them vexed, you see a different side, right? And so I was not inviting that kind of trouble. I've seen it so much in my lifetime, right? As a collections officer, as a loan officer. And so I say, I need no family problems other than you have enough, so you need to create any more, right? So certain things should trigger, okay? And so again, when you talk about dependence, you know, they may say, child, yeah, it's just my mother, you know. So yeah, boy, oh Lord, I know I can do. She got that cancer and da 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 da. So, okay, you know, she lived with the mother. The mother's dependent. Okay, the mother has cancer. It's probably terminal. Okay, so that is going to have implication along the line where this client may require financing, probably the system mother down on the line. So you need to make sure that you don't over leverage this customer, where they don't have that capacity, right? So then you may want to ask other questions. How long have you, you say, by the way, you said your mother has cancer? Yeah, that old rowdy woman, man, I know I shouldn't die. And so it gives you an idea of the person's personality or the relationship, right? So it's like, okay, so are you the only child? You say your mother's living with you. Are you living in a house with your mother? You know, no, that's my house. My mother living with me, blah, 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 blah. And so, or maybe they are living with the mother. Are they do they have any siblings? Or are they only child? Because again, there are implications. So, because if the mother passes, and this is the only child who you're interviewing, and the mother owns something or has life insurance, then there's some asset to that child. If there are others, then that means the likelihood is this person may benefit as well as this person may not benefit. Okay, because I've seen instances where the child taking care of the parent ain't left in the will or get left out. Okay, another children's one is mommy close eye or daddy close the eye, right? They in the house and everything gone, and you the bare floor, or when you come home, the lock change. Right, so the house that you live in with your mommy taking care of your mommy or your daddy, you ain't even have access to that. Okay, so things happen. So you just want to zoom in on things that have that they may say, okay, and then you want to control it because you don't want them going on and on and on. Yeah, I have this sister who. So then you want to say, okay, so let's go back to so and so. So you want to control the conversation where you're extracting information that benefits you as the lender, right? So you have a better history of this client and knowing, okay, there's some things that this loan can go south if we grant it that are not the science part of lending. Okay, it now falls under that art. We have to make these objective decisions. And so you may say, while the figures show such and such and such and such and such, I would recommend rather than doing 3 years, we do 2 years, or rather than doing 5 years, we do 3 years. We get in and out of this quickly, right? Or I don't recommend us doing this loan at all, right? And so you state your reasons either for support or for changing what should be a standard application that should be spread over 5 or 7 years, but you want to do a shorter period, or you don't want to do it at all. Okay, so there's some things you want to, when you begin the open-ended questions, that the customer will give more information than they would if you just ask the yes or no questions. Okay, understood? Okay. All right, so invite feedback. Again, you want to. This kind of ties in with point number 5. Where we repeat the questions and answers for clarification. Okay, so you want to this is the type of loan that is best suited for your needs. Do you understand how this works, especially if you do say with an overdraft? Because you want to explain how an overdraft facility works. Okay, do you understand that blah 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 blah? Okay. Then number 6. You want to display and express empathy where required. Okay. But you want to give the impression that you're a pushover, or that you give them the bank. So if someone's coming to you and they need money to bury a loved one or whatever it is, or for medical needs, for terminally ill, for themselves or for a relative, okay, you want to say, oh my, I'm so sorry to hear that, blah 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 blah. how is your mom doing? How's your dad? How's your aunt doing? How's your Grammy doing? Whoever the person is, or they may have recently had a lost one pass, right? And so it's not necessarily tied. And but you may find out when they say, I just come from you and my Grammy in a funeral home, right? And then you just want to ask, spend about a minute or so just to ask and to show that you have some sort of concern that you are human, okay? Because the public out there, their view of us as bankers or financial institution employees is that we out just for the money. And of course, that's what we're there for. We're there to make money. Okay. That's the objective of going into business. But there's also that human element, a social consciousness, a social responsibility, right? That we must generate. And it goes a long way because that can also buy you additional business. You know, I mean, I saw Miss Knowles, and boy, let me tell you, boy, that's one sweet lady, blah, 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 blah. You need to go see her, you know, see, there's a card, she gave me this card, a couple cards, here, you have one. And so you find again, that you don't have to market as hard because the people come to you, okay? Apologize for any company errors or mistakes. This is an instance where this may be an interview where the customer had a complaint. You've already done all your investigation. You are the bank or financial institution is at fault. So you want to apologize for any errors that the company may have made. Okay, so you apologize. Make sure the apology is clear. You don't want to linger on it, okay? Because then they may make it an issue, whatever. And if they do make it an issue, you have to say, you have to say, well, we have put this in place to ensure that there's not or there's not a repeat of it. Or if you feel something has gone wrong, here's my card. You can reach out to me personally, or whatever it is. So you'd want to kind of any objection they may have, and kind of escalate and like saying, oh yeah, you're wrong, you're always keeping people money. Because there's some people out there saying about us, right? Always keep people money, you check your account, the money gone, blah, blah, blah. So you'd want to, kind of be a fire extinguisher to kind of extinguish that by extending an olive branch. Okay, so you don't want to be excessive in your apology. And if and you say, here's how we have corrected it. Let me show you how we've corrected it. So if you need to show it on the screen, this is what was done. These are the reversing entries. This is what this means. This is what that means. Okay, and so help to diffuse it and you get their concentration back on the issue that they came there for, and then go through how it was resolved. Don't spend an inordinate amount of time, but because you want to manage your time, you deal properly with customer complaints. But remember, directly, that's not bringing you business. Okay, so you don't want to have your problem solving, complaint oriented interview going longer than a certain length of time, because you may have somebody coming in to do a loan application, a credit application, and that's where you make your money. So you're gonna have to balance your time. Okay, so complaint, problem solving, depending on what the problem is, may you probably don't want to spend more than half an hour, 25 minutes with the client. Okay, with a loan application, you spend more time because you're going through it, etc., etc. All right. During the interview, you want to gather relevant information. Again, you'll get this from information from the client. You write it down. If there's any documentation that's required, they may have it with them. So they may have, that if you need, there may be a formal invoice. It may come for car loan, so they already have an invoice from the car company. You may want to take photocopy of that. Okay. Or for your record, or you may need that and give them a copy. Okay, so whatever you need, you want to gather that at that time. Number 9 says maintain control of the interview. 10, remain as professional and polite. Don't take it on personally. Okay. I had a client who, in fact, the same woman who threatened to burn down the house. She used to cuss me out on the phone. She used to cuss everybody on the phone, right? And I said, Miss So-and-so, I said, I'm not being paid to take abusive conversations. I say, you could row and whatnot. I said, but I'm not gonna have that foul language going in my ears. I said, if you insist, I will hang up. Right? And she went on and on. I hung up. Right? I said, ma'am, I said, you're disrespecting me. I said, you're still cursing. She went on and on. So I hung up. So I told her what the parameters were. She crossed that line. I reminded her of that and I hung up. Next thing I know, she called the managing director. She didn't call the general manager, she called the managing director of FinCom. He called me, Mr. Rodich. The so-and-so say you hung up on her, right? Explain to him. No. Now, if you want to fire me, Mr. So-and-so, fire me. But I ain't allowed nobody to be cussing at me. Right? I draw the line. Okay. So when you want to be professional and polite, but this woman was really out of control. And so she needed to be handled firmly and to some extent rough. She was very aggressive. Now there may be some instances where you may have to call in the security or even call in the police to remove people. Okay. Because I've been in an instance, not me personally, but I've been in a bank where the person grabbed one of the stools, right? And that's probably one of the reasons a lot of banks probably did away, because back in the days, you may have had stools or chairs available for the clients. So a lot of the hallways didn't have stools and chairs anymore, right? And was getting ready to fling it, So you have to do what you have to do. I don't know if we have people to that level anymore. Have any of you all experienced anything where people have been overly aggressive, or maybe not you've seen in your branch, but it has happened in your financial institution? Yeah. Yeah. Average. Y'all don't see the collections. But you want to try to remain as professional and polite. Okay, like I said, I was burning up inside. Okay, I must say that. I was burning up inside. Okay, and I wanted to return and kind to that woman. Not curse, right? Not curse, but I wanted to really row her out. Okay, with the same tone of voice and the same intensity. Right? But I said to myself, no, take it down. You need your job, your wife and children, you have a mortgage, you gotta, take it down. Don't let this woman who always don't want her house or should lose yours. So you have to, remain, and some banks, they will give you a almost like they'll give you an outline as to what you say when you make a call, a script. Yeah, that's the way I'm looking for. Thanks. Okay, so you have a script for the different types of things. Okay, I don't know if any of you watch any of the international news, particularly the US news, because they're having a lot of hearings now, right? Congress and the Senate, US Senate having a lot of hearings now. Okay, and so you'll find a bit there saying, given the advice of my counsel, I am not going to answer that question. And so these senators and these Congress people will be barraging them and berating them or whatever it is. You're not telling us the truth. You know what the truth is. And the name is calmly say, based on the advice given to me by the, right? And they would say that 5, and I said to myself, boy, I said to myself, man, you have something there on that desk. You could show that witness. They keep talking this was, based on it. And they just call, man. They just based on the advice of my counsel. And I'm saying to myself, boy, how could you be that calm and that cool? When he's and sometimes it goes on for hours, and sometimes they're very short breaks. And I'm saying to myself, boy, you're a special guy and a man or woman, right? To just keep, yeah, you see. But of course, they also they have their team and the lawyer. So if they do get, they probably get a little hand or a little nudge in the back and saying, just you just got three hours, 15 more minutes ago. Just don't let them get under your skin. So on the flip side, we as professionals need not to take it on. Okay, we have our own issues outside of the financial institutions and our homes, which we should leave there as much as possible when we enter those doors, and not as much as possible then affect our performance on the job. We're humans. We have our limits. But let's stick with if you're like on the script, stick with the script. Okay. And if someone really becomes out of control, then you may want to have a talk with your supervisor, your manager, whoever the next person is, and say, listen, I really can't handle this person. Could you take them over or assign them to someone else? I'll switch with them, but this person is really problematic, or if it is happening in the office, you can just say, excuse me a moment. I'll get my manager, and maybe my manager can give you the answers that you want. That will help to diffuse the situation, because the person will still be filming and carrying on whatever it is. But the fact that you're not there, and then you said, I want to get the manager, he or she may be able to, right? And they figure I scored a victory. Okay, and so then you go to your manager and explain to him or her that this was happening, whatever, and they make a decision whether or not they're gonna come in. It would be in their best interest to come in and deal with the client. I know I had a manager when I was a Trinco. He would come to the door and he said, Miss so and so, whatever. If you don't mind coming into my office, right? My chair is a little bit more comfortable, right? And so that kind of like, okay, I'm now seeing the manager. Okay, so if that's what it takes, let them have that. Let them have that. That 5 minutes of glory. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. What's that? Exactly. Right. But chances are the manager may have had more experience, right? And so he or she may say things in a certain way that can deflect, right? And deflate, right? And so the person, said, leave that with me, right? I will speak, to our head office, and I will see, blah, 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 what we can do. Now, don't hold out any hope, but it's a long shot, whatever it is, because you don't want to promise or overpromise. Okay, you will be cautious, right? And so that's how you get it deflected. Okay, but chances are your manager, your supervisor, or your next person may be a little bit more experienced in handling those things and be able to diffuse it. Okay, so but try to avoid because they will see and they can sense that you're getting upset and frustrated or flustered. Okay, and if they know that they pushed the right button, some of them will continue. Okay, in collections, we have labeled some of the different types of customers. Okay, and that type of customer comes under the term of terrorist. Okay, so some customers are just terrorists. Okay, so you got to know, who you're dealing with in that instance and deal with it accordingly. Okay. Okay. So winding down during the interview, clearly restate the problem or need to be resolved if it's a problem solving or even if it's a loan application. Okay. Reassess the information provided for completeness. So you want to see what documentation you have, what information you have. Make sure you have as much information as you need at that moment. More than likely, there's some additional stuff that the client will have to provide. Okay, so you would let them know, what additional information you need in order to, firm up the decision on the loan application or to handle whatever that query may be. Okay. If this is an interview where you've collected everything from, this is the last bit of information that you required from the client, say for loan application, we let them know, okay, well, I'll call you back, within such and such a time. Okay. And do not overpromise the client. If your loan turnaround time for decisions is 24 hours or 48 hours or 7 days or 5 working days or whatever it is, right? You state that. Okay. You stay within that. So if you know that you can get it within 2 days, but the turnaround time is 5 days, sit down with 5 days. Okay, because that is the standard. And in case something goes awry, okay, because the messenger may have forgotten to include that application and it didn't get to the credit underwriter or head office, whoever needs to be on that day. And then you may say, oh gracious, just Tony, you forget this application, this envelope, this need to go to head office. Right. So you give yourself those days. Now if it comes back in 2 or 3 days, right, and you call them back early, then you've exceeded the expectations. Okay, and you've made them extremely happy, especially if the loan has been approved. Okay, or their problem has been resolved. Okay, satisfactory. Okay, thank the customer and invite him or her to ask any questions they may have, or at that time, if you have business cards, you may want to give the card to them and say, call me. You may not have any questions now, but if you have additional questions, call me, while this process is taking place. Okay. It could be, let's say, a construction mortgage application. So they may be having to go get say additional quotes for to build, contractors, estimates, etc. So and they may have questions on it, right? Or they may say, hey, here's a list of your appraisers, and so I call so and so, but there's this other appraiser, but he's not on your list. So then you have to answer some questions. No, we don't accept those ones that are on our approved list of appraisers, etc. Okay. So any questions on anything for doing? No? Okay. Okay, so let's look at after the interview. Okay. So this is where you want to document as clearly as possible all that has transpired. So while you've taken some notes during the interview, you may want to do like a summary, or there may be some other additional thoughts that you need to put together. So you want to document that. And the reason for that is, one, when you come back to that, whether it was a loan application or whether it was problem solving, or whatever the type of interview it was, and if you need to go back to it to check up on something, you will be able to know exactly where it is. And if you are not available for some reason, you're off sick, on vacation, out to a meeting, training seminar, whatever it is, someone else will be able to look at the file and surmise what, particularly if the customer comes in or calls in subsequently, and they'll have information at their fingertips. They'll be able to satisfy any questions the customer may have. Okay. If it's a loan application, you want to conduct a preliminary assessment, an investigation. So if you need to check some sources to credit bureau or whatever it is, you do that. If you need to, and we'll get into this a little bit more detail, they provided you with their job letter. You may want to, call the HR department, confirm that, I have this letter from Glenn Nottage. He says he works for you all. I just need to confirm, some information, his time of employment, length of employment, his income, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Okay. Again, like I said, we'll get into that because there's some other things when you confirm in a person's job letter, some other things you need to do. So one of the later chapters we'll look at that. Okay. Again, you want to provide the customer updated status within the time frame. So if you have not gotten an answer, you may want to call the credit underwriter or the person who has to make a decision regarding whatever it may be a problem solving thing. So there may be an error on the bank and the person's account needs to be recalculated to correct an error, but you haven't gotten finalization on exactly that the entries has been passed or the loan has actually been approved or whatever. So when you see that day 5, if you 5 day turnaround or 3 day turnaround, you want to call the customer and say, listen, we need a little bit more time. And if there, if there's a backlog, you may want to say we just have a whole lot of applications. This is, particularly if you had like a promotion, and so there's a lot of people applied and said, listen, I should have really told you 7 days instead of 5 days, but give us another day or two, but you want to give too much information. Just tell them, give you some more time. And say, I wanted to call you to update you. You should have heard from me with a definitive answer. I don't have it yet. Give me another day or two. Based on the realistic time that you've been given by the people who have to make the decision. Okay. And if necessary, you must fully investigate or assess the matter. So sometimes, let's say, for example, it may be, okay, so let's say a construction mortgage application, right? So you may want to call, different sources or different loan officers, or different appraisers, construction appraisers, to just verify, can this house really be done, or this building be completed, or this investment property be completed for $110 a square foot as opposed to $150 a square foot, right? So there may be some things that you need to get some technical information on, right? Or you may need to call to verify a process. So they may tell you, but I'm waiting for town planning to they say I have to go this route before they get approve such and such and such. Maybe you want to call town planning and say, what is your process? Right? Does it have to, because you want to verify what the client has told you is correct. So there may be some instances where you need to confirm some stuff. Okay. So number 6, request any additional information that might be required. Make a final determination or decision. So this is where the final decision is made. So if you have everything that you need to make your recommendation, you make your recommendation, and you forward it to, up the line, for the decision to be made. Okay. Once a decision has been made to approve, modify, or decline a loan application or whatever the type of query involved, you want to notify the customer of the bank's decision. Okay. And so you want to say that, so if the loan has been approved, you want to say, the loan application has been approved, or the loan application has been declined, or loan application has been approved, subject to some additional conditions. Okay. Do not say head office or our credit underwriting team decline your loan. Okay, don't cast any blame. Okay. The bank made a decision. Okay, you are part of the bank. Okay, and if they come to you and you see, and two, you do not want to promise them, oh, this happened, because they'll ask you, this look good. You can say, tell them, from where I'm sitting, it looked good, but I'm not the person who makes the final decision. Maybe the person who's making a decision will see something that I didn't see. So, while it may look good to me, it may look good to you. I don't make that decision. You have to wait until the decision comes down. Okay, so that way you help to diffuse the customer's expectations. It's best for them to be a little, be a little bit worried, right? Than going away and feeling that the loan application approved, and then it comes back and it's not approved. Okay, or it's approved with conditions, but the conditions may prove to be a little onerous for them. Okay, or the additional conditions. Go ahead.
The points that are after the interview, like number 4, provide
Number 4. Okay.
For the investigator, assess matter. The question is determined required and make the final determination.
Right.
Okay, so updated status means that you're progressing with the application, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, see, not all of these apply in every situation. Okay. This is not like a process map. These are just things that you will do. So it may not apply in all circumstances. Okay. So like I said, if you see that there's going to be a delay, you're not gonna, your standard time is 5 days turnaround, and you're not going to meet that. Then you call them on that day 5, and you update them. Listen, in another day or 2. Okay.
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
We'll see again, this may be the initial interview. So in the initial interview, that would apply. Because it is highly unlikely that people are going to come to you with everything. So you mean, or after doing an assessment, you may find that you need to ask some additional questions. Okay. I remember this was after Dorian, sometime after Dorian and during the pandemic. So this has been just a couple of years back. I was helping a financial institution with their credit assessment process. And one of the loan applications was for a business center or business operation in Grand Bahama, right, in Freeport. And so one of the questions I asked was, is that an area that is prone to flooding? Was it affected by Dorian? Okay. Is the insurance company going to insure, if it is flood prone, and if it was seriously impacted by Dorian, would an insurance company cover that building or cover that business or whatever it is? Okay. And so there was, and so some of And so another question on another one was the location of the place, and they're saying it's not easily accessible or whatever, but not. So I went Google Maps and I Googled it. Okay, as a credit underwriter, I said, okay. So I took the senior person with me, credit person, the credit underwriter, and I said, let's Google it. Okay, where is it located? Right? And this property was located. You come off a highway, there's a road, and right across from it, because they're saying they have no business, blah, 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 blah. The business could flop if we ran a business loan for them, right? Great big active shopping center, right? And you can see the exits, exiting on the road, turning through the corner, right? And this place right on the corner. Right, I said to myself, there's going to be traffic there. Okay, so the recommendation was let's not deal with this, right? I'm saying, so I said to them, okay, let's give it a second look, right? So we had somebody in Freeport actually go to the site and look at the site. Okay, now that took a couple of days longer to do because they said there's no what's happening, blah blah blah. Blah. I said, oh, we checking out some stuff, right? And so I send them a snapshot of the Google. I said, have you checked this? Right? This is a big shopping center, active shopping center. Look at the cars. You can see the cars parked and some wasn't moving. There's a still shop, but you can see it. Lots of cars. And you can tell me that can't overflow and the people can't walk. I said, now my concern is what is the elevation of that? In comparison to the shopping center. And is that my standard question when it comes to Grand Bahama and Abaco is it flood prone? Was it impacted significantly by Dorian? Right? Is it an insurable risk? Will an insurance company insure the building, insure a business going in there or whatever it is? Right? Would they insure it if you build it up and possibly put the building probably on stilts or whatever? And they say stilts. I say, listen, we gotta look for all of the possibilities in the Bahamas. Okay? Because if that whole area has been condemned, you're meaning hundreds of acres, that is probably thousands, that we are just saying being used no more because Dorian was an extreme hurricane, right? So either we build it up or we put the things on stilts, right? I mean, we started looking at doing businesses like that. So, if you decide now you can park your vehicles, your business vehicles there, well, the most you'll get is vehicle damage, loss, but your business hopefully will still be standing, or why not look at doing parking, right? That's now on stilts. I mean, Bahamas Financial Center shows that it can be done in the Bahamas. Okay, so it just means okay, that project may now move from say being $100,000 down to 25 because of some of the extra things you have to do. Now, can the client qualify for that extra $25,000? That's the cost of doing business. Okay, so you are prepared to approve as a financial institution. You're prepared to approve the loan. Now, whether or not the client is now able, because of those terms, to afford it or willing to do it, that's in their court for them to make that decision. So, but sometimes there are questions that come up that you as a lender may not see, but the credit underwriting team or whoever makes the credit decisions to approve a loan or decline a loan or modify a loan in your financial institution, he, she, or they, because some are done by a committee, some are by an individuals, right? So whoever makes a decision, they may see something that you didn't see, or even your manager didn't see. Okay, so so there is that possibility that you may have to go back to the client for additional information, clarification. Okay. Any other questions? Right? You don't want to you don't want to end the interview where you're like this woman who she's so friendly. She doing selfies. But you want them to be like, you want to be like in here. You know, it's conversational. You know, it's both persons are relaxing, conversational. Okay, so okay, so yeah, it's like, what the heck is going on? Okay. Yeah. But I had the very first time, and I got ribbed by my clients because so there's the interview sandwich. We're not gonna do the activity. The interview sandwich before doing after. Because I want to start the next chapter. But I'll just say this. I was interviewing, and this is why I said you have to make sure that you protect yourself, put yourself in a position, particularly when you're interviewing someone of the opposite sex. Okay. Nowadays, it can be someone of the same sex. Okay. Who may try to proposition you. Okay. That's the way things have evolved. Okay. But there was this case where, you know, I did a mortgage application. This was at Finco as well. I did a loan mortgage application for this young lady, and she qualified and whatnot, but the dollar amount was out of my limit. Okay, so I couldn't make a decision on it. So I can but for me it looked solid. I didn't see debt services were in good. She had a good credit history. You know, she had the estimates that was required, the appraisal, everything was in order. Okay. And even if I wasn't the account officer, if it was presented to me to make an independent decision, I would have put my stamp of approval on it. But again, I could not tell that to the client, right? And so I conveyed that. I said, you know, it has to go above me because of above. I can't make a decision on it. Someone else has to make a decision on it. Okay, and I didn't want to tell her. I would level, because sometimes we say, my manager, they'll call back. Can I speak to the manager? Look for an application for Glendina Nordage, right? It's $150,000. You ain't approved that yet? Where that is, right? Or if you tell them head office or the credit underwriting team, right? They can call them, right? So you say it has, you know, it has to go for further consideration, right? So she said, so what do I have to do to make this work? Right? Right? So I said, well, we have all that we need. I said, it's for me, you know. So then she leaned forward, right? And by this time now, you know, she got her leg crossed, right? And then let's just come up even more, right? And then, you know, you can see some cleavage and thing, right? And she just leaning forward, right? So what do I have to do to make this work, right? You know, I was like 30, I was like 30 years younger. I was 30 years younger and half the size I am now. So, you know, so I was attractive and good looking back then that days, right? So, young, young married, right? So, you know, so I got a little uncomfortable, right? And and my administrative assistant had moved away from the desk. So my code would not work, whatever my code was, it wouldn't work, right? So no one was there for my code. So I got up and I came out. So I said, well, the manager was in there. So I went to the other assistant manager, right? And so the other assistant manager, I can't remember it was I can't remember if it was a female assistant manager at the time or male. because we had some changes in that position. But they came over and they said, and they reaffirmed, and this time we left the door wide open. Right? We left the door wide open. And well, yes, it was a male. It was a male, young fellow. He was exceptional with it. Human skills and personal skills. He came and he opened the door wide because he understood. He was a little younger than me, but he understood what was going on. Okay, me, I was a little more naive. Okay, so he opened the door wide, and so we both stood in the doorway, and he said, you know, you know, I've had a look at the application, and witness and auditor said they'll go further up for consideration, and we'll get back to you, right? And then she eventually left, right? But boy, let me tell you, he ripped me. He said, Mr. Norton, she was proposition. I said, I got uncomfortable, but I didn't. He said, yeah, the woman was propositioning you. Right? That woman was propositioning you. I said, I just got uncomfortable because, I didn't, to me, I wasn't reading into what she was saying. Right? Okay. But all I know is I was uncomfortable because I was seeing more leg and more, headlights. Right? And I was like, okay, I need to see. Yeah, I come to wait for this. I'm happily married man. I don't need these. So I was a little uncomfortable. So I decided I would exit the office, and I said to him, this person just keep asking me, and I said, I don't know what else to tell them. Right? Yes, she got the mortgage. Yes, she got it. It was approved. She was approved. But I transferred it. I transferred it to one of the other offices when it came back. Because all my other offices at the time were females. Right? So I gave it to the senior. Sorry. Well, yeah. Well, the senior loan officer, she could, even a man, she can put into place. Okay, so she was in, and I ended up losing her because she ended up becoming a manager of financial control, and the managing director say, you're losing a good person. Why you put a good recommendation? I said, I just, all our reviews were good, right? She's good with numbers, whatever it is. And you said that you all have a targeted because you'll need a financial manage financial control, right? I said, I ain't gonna hold nobody back. He's like, well, she now gonna jump to be manager, you saw assistant manager, right? I said, it just ain't my time yet. Okay. And then it came a time when I became a manager. Then I became a senior manager. She was still a manager. Right. So I eventually rose. So to me, I'm not intimidated by other people's success or progress. Okay. So I'm comfortable with me. Okay. So and that's how you have to be comfortable with yourself. And only when you become comfortable with yourself, you do like what I said, train the next person to take your job. You see, because even my father didn't understand that. Because I said my objective was to become the credit risk manager of the Royal Bank Group. Okay, so moving out of FinCo and transitioning into Royal Bank itself, right, and becoming their senior credit risk person, right, their credit risk manager. And my dad couldn't understand. You become managing director. Well, I left FinCo before moving further up, and then and my father didn't understand that decision. And well, my dad was like an advisor to me. I respected him. So even if my wife and I made a decision, I would still bounce it off him. Okay. And so then they announced this woman taking over as managing director. He said, see that? That's supposed to be your job. They give that job to a woman. That's supposed to be your job. I said, Daddy, that ain't what I wanted. Right? So he said, why? And I tried to explain to him that the managing director of FinCo and the senior credit, there's only a few $1,000s between their salary. Okay, probably like relatively speaking, say $10,000. Okay, $15,000. Okay, the managing director of FinCo got a deal with the board of directors, got a deal with the vice president of Royal Bank, their board. Okay, got a deal with budgets. Okay, staff, right? Staff reports. They had, of course, the board of directors. So you had annual general meetings, right? Quarterly and sometimes monthly board meetings, and all the reports that need to be done, and dealing with IT issues, and making sure, when if the ATMs ain't functioning properly and the customers complaining about this, and the move away from the savings passbooks to whatever. And for the senior credit risk manager, he 9 to 5. He approved a decline of application, he gone home. He ain't gotta worry about no budget. Right? So for 10 or 15 or even $20,000 less. Because at that time, the managing director was making 120,000, right? So the senior credit risk manager was making about 100,000, right? So 20,000, relatively speaking, and for someone making about half of that, okay, that's that's where you want. Yeah. So to me, plus that was where my niche was, credit and making those kind of decisions. Okay. So holiday weekends, when you got to deal with whether or not they knocking out this wall for the vault, and you got to get the adequate security, right? Because I had to do that as when I was relieving as manager at the Palmdale branch, right? Because they were doing some construction, whatever it is. So you had to then deal with the alarm company because of the alarm trip, and then you got to call the police and all them kind of things. No, I don't need that for $20,000 less. No more stress. Okay, so you have to be comfortable where you are and know what your passion is and pursue that in your career. Okay, so it might be to stay in commercial banking, maybe to go in offshore banking, maybe launch out in accounting. Okay, it may so that would determine where you go from here after this, after doing the certificate course, right? You may then say, okay, I need to now move towards doing the Chartered Bank Institute, because that's where my passion is, and commercial banking, or go into accounting because that's where it is, or do wealth management because I'm looking more for dealing with wealth management clients and foreign clients. So you have to develop where your passion is. Okay, and when you get there, right, and you move to keep focus on where you want to be. Okay, you may move faster than you expect, or you may move slow. But if you keep focus, you'll get there. Okay, and don't allow anyone to derail you, or to, in this case, the managing director was kind of little noodling me, but she could end up being higher than you now, pay a higher pay grade, whatever. Fine. Okay. But I know that I have developed a rapport with that individual. So if I need some financial control, I can reach out to her. Okay. And chances are she'll do it quicker for me, and I can get something done ahead of somebody else who in the queue. You see, so so to me, I know my time was going to be coming, and my time did come. Okay. So, and in fact, in less than 2 years, I had 2 promotions. Toward the end of my time at FinCo, right? So it'll come to you. Just remain focused and do what you have to do, and it'll come to you. Okay. Yeah, that was quite an experience with the woman. They never let me live that down. Okay, so let's begin chapter 6. Oh, incidentally, did you have, there was some, I had actually put in some blanks. Was there any problems with that? No? Chapter 6, I sent the email with the, okay. All right, anyway, we'll still cover those, those blanks that need to be filled in. So this is where we, really rubber really starts hitting the road. A lot of those chapters were kind of groundwork, what you call it, foundational. Here's now where we really get into the meat of credit. Okay, so the lending process and introduction help us to understand the overall process, and how we get from beginning to ending. Okay, so the lending process, and this was one of those blanks that you had to complete. So top of page 22, it is vitally important to assess, it is vitally important to the success of the credit process that the bank or lending institution or financial institution carry out the following 4 essential foundational activities. 1, structure the process. So you must structure the process, and that includes loan origination, loan underwriting, that's the decision-making process, whoever makes the decision, administration, loan administration. Once that loan is, especially once the loan is booked, there's some activities before the loan is booked. Once the loan is booked, more importantly, administration is important for the functioning of the loan and also for the safe keeping of the documents and stuff. And then, of course, loan servicing. And we'll talk about each of those in a little bit. Okay. The second one, well, the first one again is we must structure the process. The second one is we must agree to the lending products offered. Now we will find when we go to when we join a financial institution that they already have a suite of products. Okay, so in the case of Finco, they wouldn't do consumer loans. They didn't do consumer loans. They don't do consumer loans. They do mortgages. That's their specialty, and they do different types of mortgages: commercial, residential, etc. Right? Sometimes, though, you may take on a new product while you're working at that institution. You may take on a new product, or you may reorganize your focus. So in the case of, let's say, Fidelity, for example, about 15 or so years ago, Fidelity decided that they would, because I think their policy, their portfolio was 70% loans and 30% consumer loans, term loans. Okay, and they wanted to flip that switch. Okay, so they wanted to move it where they had 70% consumer loans or term loans and 30% mortgages. Okay, and so that is when the little fish in the pond decide they can take on the big giant Commonwealth Bank. And that's how that tug of war between those two banks. Okay, and at that time, Commonwealth Bank was probably like 10 times or more the size of Fidelity. Okay, so Fidelity decided, okay, we're gonna concentrate on consumer loans. So the training then had to change. Okay, because the focus was now on consumer loans. Their motto before that used to be helping Bahamians create and manage wealth. Okay, that shifted a bit because now they're going after consumer loans, because consumer loans have high interest rates. There's a quicker turnaround time compared to mortgages. Mortgages take 3 or more months before they are put on the books. Consumer loan to be put on the books in less than a week. Probably a day or two, once you get everything that, once it's approved, putting aside the approval process, and getting all your, like say, the acknowledged salary reduction, whatever it is. Once you get that salary, acknowledged salary reduction letter, that loan could be drawn on the same day, or people could have the money by the following day, the latest. Okay, so it was a quick turnaround time, plus high interest rate. So you made more money in a shorter period of time. So hence, that's our focus. So now you have to train your people who have been mortgage loan officers to be now consumer. Okay, and chances are that was done in preparation before the switch or during the switch. So there's this metamorphosis, and so to a large extent they probably have achieved that. Okay, because at one point they stopped doing mortgages altogether. I think I saw a few years ago where they started doing vacant mortgages again. Okay, so they may be doing more mortgages. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that their portfolio is closer to what they wanted originally. 17 consumer loans, 30 mortgages. So, but the decision to agree to the lending products is normally ratified by senior management or the board. Okay, so if there's a board of directors that governs your organization, that board would, so if a product is recommended from within the bank, that has to go to the board. All the different things are hashed out. How's this going to impact our bottom line? How are we going to put it in effect on the training, the PR, the IT systems required for it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do we need to hire more people now or later, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that ultimately the board will say, these are what our products are, as our product line. Okay, so that isn't something that is decided by the bank at a local level. That's at the highest level, usually for the bank. Okay. You agree to the criteria to qualify. Okay, so for consumer loans, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For mortgages, we need so. Business loans, we need so. Overdrafts, we need X, Y, Z. Right? So then the age requirements, length of time requirements, interest rates, setting interest rates, etc. So you'll put all the criteria. Usually, the description of the products and 2 and 3, those are normally encapsulated in your loan manual, right? Or you may call it something different, right? But you'll have a manual that outlines, these are what our products are, these are the criteria, and this is how it should operate. Okay, so your loan manual or your credit manual is your credit Bible. Okay, so if you do what that says you ought to do, you should have a good credit. Okay. Fourthly, you must select the team to carry out the process with a comprehensive list of products and criteria. Again, that's going back to what I said about 2 and 3. Those items will be included in your credit or lending manual. And 2 and 3 requires that whoever's making the decision on 2 and 3 have an understanding of the market culture. Okay. So while you want to have a diverse board of directors, you also want to make sure that the majority of them understand banking, the financial sector, the culture of the people, and all those things. Because if they don't, they may not make the right decision. Okay, so in the case of Fidelity said, hey, we used to be small fish. But look here, we won't go after those consumer loans. And so they made that determination and the board said, yes, let's go for it. You know, we have people in key positions who, so for example, the vice president of lending at the time, vice president of lending came from Commonwealth Bank. Okay, years before. So he had a lot of experience with, as a loan officer and a senior person, dealing with consumer loans and getting that turnaround time and knowing the importance of getting things right and getting it right the first time and getting it right in short period of time. Okay, so he led some serious in-house training for his people, his team. Okay, so so he selected the team to carry on the process initially. So some people may have been reassigned, and other people may have been brought on board. Okay, so so those who may not have been the ones who could really churn may have been put in the back office functions, and then those who felt were really some of the eagles, we bring them in the forefront because and particularly people with people skills. So you want to have the right people in the right place. Okay, so you don't want, you know, a circle, you know, trying to put a circle in a triangle and vice versa. Right. So the four essential foundational activities: structure the process, agree to the lending products offered, agree to the criteria to qualify, and select your team to carry out the process. Okay, so let's talk about the structure. Okay, which is origination, underwriting, administration, and servicing. Okay, and this is where again you have some blanks to fill in, or you would have filled in some blanks. Okay, so the structure consists of 4 key functional areas or pillars, effectively working in tandem to achieve overall profitability and sustainability of the bank. These pillars, again, the first one is loan origination. And this is, I indicated in one of the previous classes, about knowing and understanding how what you do may affect another department. Okay, and when we understand how what we do and what we do affects another department either positively or negatively, then we tend to be able to work more in harmony, right, with a common objective and a common goal. Okay, and you remember I also made the comment that I would recommend that someone who goes into lending goes into collections first. Okay, because in understanding and seeing some of the things that are bad, and in some cases absolute garbage that should not have been even approved. When you go into lending, you tend to say, listen, you know, I need them getting on our case or no bad loan, whatever it is, right? Although there's still that proclivity because you got quotas that you got to meet. You still got to push to get loans, but you tend to be more mindful that you ain't gonna put absolute junk, right, or saying absolute junk to be looked at and to waste somebody's time, or if you are a approving officer to approve it, right? Because at some point in time it's going to come back and bite you big time. Okay, in one financial institution, what we did was so you have the branches, and each branch have their loan portfolio. Okay, and then in those branches you have officers who are responsible for portions of that portfolio. Okay, so the branches were numbered, so you had a branch number so you can identify, okay, branch A booked this loan. Okay, in branch A, who's that loan officer under? Who's that loan on? sorry, what officer is that loan under? So we can see um, who's managing that. Okay, then we dug deeper. Who was the approving officer? Okay, so if it was in the manager's limit and the manager approved it, we can see that the manager approved it. Okay. I was the credit risk manager. If I approved it, they can show that if the VP approved it, it showed the VP. Okay, if the president approved it, it showed. If the board approved it, if it showed. Okay, so then when you look at delinquency, okay, you look to see, okay, branch C have a high level of delinquency. Okay. Then you look, you see officers 3 and 7 have the highest delinquency. Okay. Then you zoom it down. Who was the approving officer? Mr. Norwich was the approving officer for them too. Right? We look at some of the other portfolios. Mr. Norwich did very little approving in theirs. But these two was prolific. Right? He was doing just about all of their approvals. Okay. That's where your highest delinquency is. So then you realize, okay, our starting point is Mr. Norwich. Okay, so then you go to Mr. Norwich and you say, you made this decision. Why you made this is crap. Okay, and then you may find there's a deeper thing. You may have some where he was getting a cut from some of these loans, whatever it is. But the main point is you find out who's making the crappy decisions. Okay, you can zero in on the point, right? And then you find out 3 and 7, they know they were crappy, but they was meeting their quotas and whatnot, and getting their bonuses and whatever it is. And they didn't care if the loans went bad, right? Because they was getting good performance reviews, they was getting their bonuses, getting increases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Maybe even gotten a promotion, right? So now you can zoom in on them, those 2, 3, and 7 and say, okay, with y'all, we need to pull you all, right? And send you off for retraining or whatever it is. So the first thing is you want to send for retraining. Okay. Or determine if they need to be retrained. If it isn't retraining, there's some other problem. Well, HR will deal with the other problem. If it ain't, the person needs additional training. Okay. But the whole point is we were able to zoom in and see, the branch that had the highest delinquency, the officer or officers in any particular branch that had the highest delinquency, who the approving officer or officers were. Okay. Or was it the president? Was the board make some stupid decisions, right? Or if the next person up to Mr. Norwich overturned it, maybe Mr. Norwich declined it, but the other person approved it, right? So you're able to see those kind of things because it should be documented, right? And there'll be a trail. Okay, so if you could, you would want to have it where you could determine, right, from origination point of view, right, who is doing the good loans, who's doing the bad loans, who may need some retraining, et cetera, or even who may need dismissal. Okay. So the loan origination is our branches. That's where the client's request is made. Okay. Most of you probably have already done this, so I don't need to wait for you to fill in your blanks. Those who haven't, you go back and do it because the PowerPoint presentation was sent to you in any event. So then there's loan underwriting. That's the credit underwriting unit or the decision-making unit. In some instances, you have in your branches, your loan manager or your branch manager may have a certain level of approval, or may have an approval limit. But above that, or certain loans or certain types of facilities he or she may be able to approve. Anything outside of that may have to go either to your head office or to a credit underwriter or to the board or whatever it is. So So you would have clearly defined lines on what types of loan and what levels of loan goes to who to make a decision. Okay, usually there is some central decision making, similar to insurance. Okay, the insurance has how what they call insurance underwriters. So a insurance agent will write up a loan, and that would be reviewed by the underwriting team to make sure it's a good risk. So even though you get your car insurance, whatever it is, and you get your certificate, that overall thing is being reviewed. It may not affect the decision at the time, but it's being reviewed. Okay, so similar thing with a loan manager or branch manager making a decision, approve a loan. That decision is, while it may not affect the loan application, this is approved, that is still being reviewed by someone with the credit underwriting responsibilities. Okay, so this is like I'm painting a broad picture, and it's 4 key functional areas. Okay, again, depending on your bank, if it's very large, you may have more people who can deal with it. If it's a small bank, you may find more of the decisions are at the branch level, right? Or it could be vice versa. Again, it depends on the structure, decision-making structure in a financial institution. But generally speaking, you have loan origination, which is the branches, loan underwriting, which is decision-making team, or it could be a one-man band, a one-woman band. And you have loan administration. Okay, that's dealing with processing and control. And then finally, you have loan servicing. Okay. Loan servicing is your collections or asset recovery. This is when things go wrong. I used to have in there, should things go wrong, when I changed it because nothing is absolute. I don't care how good a lender you are always going to have at least one, you're always going to have one loan that goes bad. I remember when my first loan went bad, I was very devastated. I couldn't believe that I had a loan that went bad. I was at Barclays Bank at the time. I almost cried. I said, can I make that stupid mistake of approving that loan, right? That was a good loan. That looked like a good loan, but I made this mistake and it went bad. Right? It might have been my fault. It may not have been my fault. I can't remember. I didn't even check. Right? All I know is a loan that I had approved went bad. Right? And you know, thank God I was not suicidal. No, I took my work very seriously, right? And Barclays Bank was considered like the training ground. And usually if you went to look for another job and they knew that you were from Barclays Bank, you were almost certain to get the job at another financial institution because they knew that you were well trained, particularly if you were a lender, right? Even the cashiers, because they know that you were well trained as a cashier. Because we had in-house training a week or 2 weeks. Initially, usually like 2 weeks training for tellers, right? And in the second week, we actually dealt with real money and real bills, right? So they would bring out a real till, and you'd have to do like transactions with the other people on the course. Then you have to balance that, like how you go back into the right. And to me, it was good because instead of using monopoly money or just paper that was printed, right, you was dealing with actual cash, so you got a comfort level. So when you actually went on the counter, right, you still had an apprentice to someone, right? But you to me, you're more comfortable. You see, and the fact that you had so you were apprentice to somebody, so you had somebody like a tutor, kind of like guiding you in the first week or so. It really, I found it really helped. I know it helped me. Okay. So let's look at so the next slide And this is illustrated in your book on page 23. So origination is sales oriented. That's your branch. Okay. This is where the initial client contact is made. You deal with any of your know your customer issues, compliance issues. You complete and submit your credit application. This is client servicing. This is where you make sure that all the conditions of the loan, any necessary documentation is gathered before you submit the loan application, and once it's approved, you're responsible for gathering the information. So, like, if you need to get an acknowledged life assurance assignment, acknowledged salary reduction or salary assignment, those kind of things, that's done at the origination level. Okay. Next, you look at credit underwriting, and you see this arrow is a two-way arrow, because sometimes credit underwriting needs to go. They may need clarification, and so they may go back to the origination station, okay, to the originators, and say, hey, I don't fully understand it, or I need some additional information, I need additional item. So it's a two-way thing, and so then the branch would then provide it to them. Okay. I prefer it be a two-way street as opposed to the originators declining it as it's presented, and then you having to go back to you, and then you submit another application with the corrections, and that is something that I personally practice. So I gave the loan officer opportunity to correct something that needed to be corrected, or to give me the additional information, rather than, and then of course I ain't giving no long window, because I have a turnaround time too. So if you could get this to me within, say, by the end of the day or tomorrow morning, I can make my decision. If not, if you don't provide it, then in the time the clock run out, the client has presented. Okay. So you need to have that dial, that open communication with your underwriting department. And if you're underwriting, you need to have that with your originators. Okay. Because it develops a bond that is naturally not there. Okay. Because credit origination and credit underwriting usually always have conflicts. Okay. Because credit origination is sales driven. I want my loans. Okay. Credit underwriting is, hold on a minute. Okay. Credit underwriting is almost like the police officer, the law, the judge, right? And that judge is saying, hold on a minute, I don't quite understand this. You need to provide more evidence of that, et cetera, right? And so you'll find the loan officers, and you just being unnecessarily stickler. So you'll find, why you decline that loan? That was a good loan. So you'll find naturally there's this tension. Okay. So one of the ways that I, as a credit underwriter, sought to relieve that was to have that two-way communication where I gave you an opportunity, if it wasn't corrected, to correct it. Now it was documented. Okay. I can document it with an email or a little note if we have it in the system, right? So if you don't get back and they say it was acknowledged by this stuff the following day, I can say, well, I was dealing with them, blah, blah. Then if they ask for me to show, then I can show and tell. Okay. I come on my behind. Okay, because I got a job to perform, but I could give you an opportunity. Now, if I find that you keep making the same mistakes, then you can get the decline as presented coming back to you. Okay. Because obviously you refuse to learn or incapable of learning, or you just meaning to do it or lazy. And whichever one of those reasons is not acceptable to me as a credit underwriter if you keep doing it. Okay. So don't waste my time. You are not being polite to me, right? So I have to then do what I have to do. Decline it as presented, and then you deal with the fallout as the originator. Okay, whether you are a loan officer in the branch or whether you're the manager of the branch. Okay, but it's important, like I said again, to have that two-way communication to kind of help relieve some of the just because of the nature of the two functions, you're gonna have conflict. Okay, so if it's approved by credit underwriting, it goes it finds its way to administration. Administration is concerned with operational risk and operational process control. So they deal with credit disbursements, collateral adequacy, that is making sure that the collateral that is required is held. Okay, and they deal with the input output. So they're the ones who will actually book the loan, do whatever the entries are, the financial entries are to put the loan on the books and have the funds dispersed. Okay. The next step is sometimes this is where you find because there could be tension between the administration people and the and the originators, right? So the originators and the administration team, again, the administration department are like gatekeepers or like police officers. Okay, so again, you're gonna have that tension. So you need to have that two-way communication. Okay, so I didn't get this, could you provide it to me? Okay, if it's not provided within a certain time frame, they document it, and then it becomes a non-compliance issue. Okay. So really, that's really how the work should flow. Origination, underwriting, administration, back to origination, and until the loan is paid off. At some point in time, you'll find that administration, you may not necessarily involve underwriting, but you'll find between origination and administration, and there's this back and forth, because sometimes you may have to deal with like when it comes to like annual renewals of homeowners insurance and that type of thing. For companies that are being reviewed, you need to have their annual returns, et cetera, et cetera. So administration will be asking for some of those things. The life insurance is about to expire. We need confirmation that life insurance is, the homeowners is getting ready to expire. We need confirmation that it's been renewed, et cetera. Okay. However, things are likely to go wrong with 1 or 2 year loans, or 3 or 4 year loans. Not all of them, but some of them. Okay. And that's where loan servicing comes in. Okay. So loan servicing is there, excuse me, for risk control, right? The first thing is, excuse me, you try to stabilize the loan. Okay. So you stabilize the loan or you repair the loan. Okay. And if that fails, then you go into recovery mode. Okay. And if the loan is stabilized or repaired, that's when you then turn the account back over, the administration of the account, the oversight of the account, to origination. Okay. So any questions? We'll end there because there's a chart, and we'll complete that chart on Thursday. We'll go through that chart, complete that chart on Thursday. Okay. But there you have it: origination, writing, administration, and loan servicing. Any questions before you leave? Everyone who's here signed in. Yes. I think one person didn't sign in. Okay, for those of you online, have a good evening and see you on Thursday.
Good night.
Good night.